It's time for another convoy to Ottawa, and I'm going to start getting this in the works. I want to get a hold of all my truck drivers that we all work with.
Do panel discussions like this, the more we talk about it in the open, the less hope the government has of evading responsibility for their actions.
Videos, the story about Jolene. And every time I hear Jolene's story, I always think about the importance of our work.
Still controversy over this topic. It's not one that I've dug into in detail myself. My focus has been very much the COVID file. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome. This is the new and improved Edmonton Freedom Central Prime Gold Media. I'm just having a slight technical glitch. Bear with me 1 second. I am here with Benita Pedersen, and Selena Paley is going to be joining us, and we're here tonight to talk about Alberta politics. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on Benita. Welcome, Benita. It's been a while since you've been on the Edmonton Freedom Central show. I just produced that intro, like literally down to the last 10 minutes before the show. What did you think of that?
I like that. That was a great intro, Phil. You did a great job with video editing.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So it probably brought back some memories. There was a clip in there of the December 15th episode where you did an anti-bullying episode focusing on all of the kind of the police interventions that were going on in Grand Prairie and West Edmonton Mall, which, you know, affected you personally as well. And so it's been a long road, and I know that you've been working with Take Back Alberta. What would you like to take the lead and tell us a bit about what you've been working on?
Absolutely. It's been an interesting journey. For a time, I was protesting and rallying, you know, outside the legislature and outside the Parliament building in protest of policies that were not in best interests of the people. And now I've transitioned and, in a sense, gotten political. And I've realized that if we want those policies changed, we need to effectively engage with the policymakers. And so Take Back Alberta is an example of an initiative that we can use to effectively get changes made. I personally got actively involved with Take Back Alberta last fall, and I took part in the UCP AGM that happened west of Edmonton. But of course, I had heard about Take Back Alberta before that, and I heard about the thousands and thousands and thousands of freedom-minded Albertans that had purchased memberships in the United Conservative Party so that they could vote out that dictator of a leader, Jason Kenney. So it's just success after success after success with Take Back Alberta. And now I'm so pleased to be a part of it and contributing towards future success.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I did catch some of David's speech at a recent event. I think it was about a week and a half ago. And his story really resonated with me in terms of, you know, first of all, you know, he told the story about how from a young teenager, he got involved in the political process. And that's quite opposite, I think, of what most people do. You know, most young people are not thinking politics. They're, you know, they're thinking about dating and you know, hanging out with their friends and stuff. But David was a different kind of kid, and he got really into the political process, didn't he?
Oh, yes. He started at a young age. My understanding is his interest was at the age of 12, and then he attended his first political meeting by the age of 14, and then it went from there. But look who we've got here with an interest in politics. Selena, how are you doing?
Hi. I'm really good, you guys. It's so good to see you. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you sound good to me, Selena. Good to be on a podcast again. Is this your first time in several days?
It's been a while. I've been busy working on some things in the background. I'm really excited to share with everybody very soon. Very soon, you guys. Not today, but very soon. But today we are talking about politics, my favorite subject. And two of my favorite, political commentators, analysts, if you will, Phil and Benita. You guys have been following politics in Alberta for some time. So how's it looking out there, Benita? What are you getting from the polls and from people in terms of how they're going to vote this April?
Oh, I'm very, very optimistic. There is a lot of support for the Conservatives. It's looking up. The mainstream media, of course, would have us believe otherwise, but it's been quite some time now. I no longer trust the mainstream media. One of my favorite places to go to is actually 338canada.com. I don't know if you have visited that site yet, but that's the polls. And in many constituencies across Alberta, we are neck and neck. UCP and NDP, very, very tight race, especially, well, the urban areas predominantly.
Right.
And so it's an aggressive push. The rural ridings we're quite confident most rural ridings are going to vote Conservative. And I'm just really optimistic about the future. And what I'm loving is I'm seeing all of these people get engaged. They've never participated in an election before in their life. And right now they're door knocking and participating in all sorts of ways. They're just super excited.
Oh, thank you so much, whoever you are, Facebook user. I just got my hair done today. I'm feeling like $1 million. Do I look like $1 million?
Yeah, you're looking good. You're looking good. And I got to just say, it's great having you guys both back on, the rebranded Edmonton Freedom Central. I've been fighting to try and get back on the air for some time, as you know. It's just starting to actually pick up. We're doing a lot of video publishing, so I'm really happy to have you guys here.
I know the feeling, Phil.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to tell any stories tonight, but you definitely have an open mic if you'd like to. Okay. Benita, I know you were going to share some information on your screen, but I noticed that you've got the studio showing on the share there, so I wasn't sure. You tell me when you want to bring it up on screen. I'm going to let you drive.
Can we talk about Rachel Notley and the NDP tonight? Can we talk about them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I hope we do.
Good. I'm ready. Well,
I was hoping we would talk a little bit first about vote patterns and then transition to NDP. How does that sound? I'm ready to start screen sharing, Phil.
You go ahead.
Okay. So you're ready for your screen?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Excellent.
So this is a election results from way back in 2012 for a rural region. And the reason I'm showing this is because politics, basically being able to predict political results, is all about patterns and polls. So first I'm going to show some patterns and then I'm going to show some polls. And so this is back in 2012. And the purpose of me showing you this grid is to illustrate to all of our viewers that there was a time in Alberta when we could split the Conservative vote and still have a Conservative MLA elected. So in the example of Athabasca, Sturgeon, Redwater, the Conservative vote was split between the Progressive Conservative rep at that time and the Wild Rose Party rep. And in that case, the Progressive Conservative rep won it and he became the MLA for that area. Okay. So there was a time in Alberta we could split that Conservative vote and end up with a Conservative elected. Now, unfortunately, things have changed. And so here are the results from 2015 for that similar area. And what happened in 2015 is, as you can see, the Progressive Conservative rep got over 5,000 votes. The Wild Rose Party rep got over 4,900 votes, but neither one of those Conservative reps was elected. An NDP rep was elected. And so this is just something I want to illustrate to all our viewers, because apparently there's some people out there who still seem to disregard the concept of vote splitting. And so I thought these charts would help to illustrate it. So these are the results of the 2015 election. And after 2015, then the two parties merged. The Progressive Conservatives merged with the Wild Rose Party and became the United Conservative Party. So the concept is, of course, put the votes together. But unfortunately, I'm hearing whispers of some people, again, wanting to split the Conservative vote. And that concerns me. And so what I encourage everybody to do, if you haven't yet, is go to a website called 338canada.com and go check out 338canada.com. And that it's a great website to go to review polls. Another super site is daveberta.ca. You can get some results there as well. And so when you go visit the polls at 338canada.com, well, as you can see by this demonstration here, the UCP and the NDP are neck and neck. And so anybody who thinks that supporting an alternative Conservative party is a good idea really needs to study this chart. Just stare at this chart for a while. And you have to realize that your support for an alternative Conservative party means that, in a sense, you are going to be contributing to the reduction of this blue line right here where I'm waving my mouse. That blue line is going to get smaller if you support an alternative Conservative party. And so if this blue line gets smaller, and then your alternative Conservative party, which is probably somewhere down here somewhere that doesn't even show, well, then which line is going to be the longest? It's going to be the orange one. And so one of my reasons for wanting to speak tonight was to just help remind people of that, because I was at an event recently where they were encouraging people to split the Conservative vote. I think people need to unite. If you are freedom-minded, it is necessary that we unite behind the Conservative Party with the most money, members, and momentum, the United Conservative Party.
Right. So we have some viewers that, they're obviously, they think, and I understand this viewpoint, but they think that basically if we vote for the same old, then we're, nothing's going to change. But I think there's some nuance in there. And one of the important nuances is the Alberta political situation by comparison to the Canadian context. So the federal situation, we have this same issue. Okay. There's a lot of people questioning the Conservatives because they didn't stand up with the convoy. They didn't stand up for our rights. And a lot of people thought, well, PPC was the answer. And, of course, in that 2021 election, we saw a lot of people in the streets at that time supporting the PPC. There was thousands and thousands of people with purple shirts on. And yet they still only managed to get 5% of the popular vote and not a single seat, somewhere in there, 5 to 7%. And so that should be a foreboding lesson for us on the Alberta scene, where we have fledgling political parties that really haven't been established. They haven't been elected yet. They haven't proven themselves yet. I question personally the choice of leadership of the local alternative political parties. I don't know that there's people that are fully qualified involved there. On the other hand, I think there's many qualified people within the UCP, but I think there's also a lot of what I like to call quote unquote turd burglars in the UCP that maybe were involved in some level on perpetuating this upon us. So here's the piece of information the viewers aren't entirely aware of, that there was a big effort by Taking Back Alberta, which included Benita and a young fellow named David Parker, to basically oust Kenny. And that came about by getting people to buy memberships. And you guys elected, 9 new board members out of 20? Is that correct?
There's 21 people on the board and 9 seats were open at the AGM last October. There'll be another 8 seats open this October. So of those 9 seats, we filled every seat with a freedom-minded individual because the Take Back Alberta team was organized and it was great. And that's exactly what's needed right now in this upcoming provincial election is we need to be strategic, organized, and coordinated, just like we were when we voted against Jason Kenney and just like we were when we replaced those 9 board members.
And you know, I will admit, I've got a statement and a question. I will admit that, you know, when that idea came about, I was not a big supporter of the idea of giving the UCP more money. That being said, after listening to David Parker's speech recently, I mean, I found it very compelling the way that he stated that, you know, you have the choice between taking, you know, a battleship that needs repairs to battle or a canoe. And, you know, maybe the canoe is not such a great choice. Selena, I have a question for you.
Okay.
I know that there are people out there, and I can see some in comments suggesting that we just need to stop voting. I have my own thoughts in the matter, but, you know, how would you respond to somebody that's lost hope to the point that they'd say, stop voting? I mean, isn't this Take Back Alberta thing about getting involved in the political situation so you can influence it?
Right. You know, I got this question a lot when the federal election was here and everyone sort of was jumping on the PPC bandwagon for good reason. You know, at that time, we were saying you should always vote for the party that best represents your values. And in that case, PPC was putting our rights, our freedoms, you know, ahead of their own political gain. That's how they were coming across. Like, we're here for the people. We stand for the rights of the people, you know. And then Danielle Smith came on her campaign and she was talking about the Sovereignty Act and making sure that we put the rights of the citizens ahead of the political parties' agenda. The political parties are not there to be served. They are there to serve the people. And we've got it backwards a little bit. I think that if we just get back to reminding everyone in office that they are there to serve the interests of the public, of the citizens, of the people, you know, I think we'll get back to that. I think that the political systems that we have in Canada were operating fine before they were infiltrated with individuals who don't want to put our rights ahead of their own, right? So I think that Benita's right. I think that David Parker is onto something as well when we say we just need to get the right people voted in to make the right decisions. And those people need to have certain values that align with the majority of Albertans, the majority of Canadians. You know, that is where we have the majority minority thing happening in our government is we're going to do what's best for the majority of people, what the majority of people want, what they say, right? And so I think that if we do a really good job at the front of it, doing the checks, you know, balances, making sure these people are legit. Like you were saying, Phil, we're not really sure about some leaders out there right now doing the rah thing. We're just not sure about them. We shouldn't be voting for anybody or any political party that we're unsure of. That's for certain. But how do we go about becoming sure and certain of certain parties? Well, you get behind a certain individual and try to get them into that party where they can influence decisions that benefit everybody, not just one set of people, but everybody. And they should be very, very, if not 100% closely aligned to our human rights, our Charter of Rights, our Bill of Rights, our Human Rights Act, everything that has been put in place to protect us as people in this nation working with involved in the corporation that is Canada, you know, because that's our reality. We have to look at it like that. We have to treat it like that. We need a solid board of directors that stands for something that we believe in as well. So that's where I'm at with that. I'm going to put my name in the hat. I would love to be on the board of the UCP and help move this train down the right track for once, get it on the right track and get it moving down the right track. Could I add some value in that capacity? Absolutely. I don't hide anything from everybody. Knows who I am, what I stand for. It's just a matter of getting your votes and getting in. And that's where I think it gets a little bit tricky. And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, but we have great people that start off great, but then they need money in order to get into the political system. And this is where we have favors now and money being palmed and corporate sponsorships. And now all of a sudden, what you stood for now is more aligned with the money that help you get into office in the first place, right? So there's some things I think that we need to look at in terms of the process of getting people in, and just making sure that that process continues to follow them once they're in office, that they're doing the right things, that we're holding them accountable to their word, what they promised they would do for us. And if not, then we start all over again. I mean, we get it wrong sometimes. We're human. We get it wrong. But I think Benita's right in that we should all be in lockstep now when we're going forward, because I think we all have a pretty good idea of what we want and most certainly what we don't want.
Phil, I'd like to speak to that. Selena's brought up some great points, and I look at it as a path. Okay, so we elect someone to do some work for us, hopefully, and our intention is they stay on a certain path. That's the intention. And so let's say they're going down the path and they're mostly doing the right job, but let's say they get off path a bit. Well, then what we need to do as engaged, interested voters is we need to guide them back to the path. And getting someone to do something, motivating someone to do something, it's not always about being unpleasant or mean. Sometimes it's simply about being encouraging and saying, hey, actually we need it over there. When you're over there, we really appreciate what you're doing. You have to express appreciation for these people. They're just human beings. And so when they do something right, let them know they're doing something right, and they're going to keep doing it right, and they're going to stay on the path. When they go off the path, initially, all they need is a nudge, a slight redirect to bring them back. Now, if they're repeatedly going off the path and they're not on that path you want them to be on, well, then it may be something else has to happen. And then if they're extremely off the path, well, then it might be time to let that person go and replace them with somebody else. And this seems to be the natural evolution of politics. I've heard many wise people say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So you get someone in there and their intentions are good for a while, and hopefully their intentions will remain good for quite some time. But if there ever comes a time that there's an elected representative who, for whatever reasons, is no longer being of service to the people, well, then it's time to let them go and put a new one in. And that applies to all of them, even the ones that we're hopeful about right now. It applies to all of them. Now, I'm very, very optimistic about many of the people that are running in this election. I'm super excited about some of them.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I'm quite confident that they're going to do some good work in the coming months after May 29th.
Well, they better. They're going to have to listen. They're going to have to answer to me. No, I'm just kidding. But no,
And
seriously. Yeah, but seriously, having this social media platforms out there, the ability for independent journalism to kind of follow the political races, the political commentary, what we're seeing from our politicians has been really good for us. That has been very instrumental. That is something we can't lose. We need the ability as Canadians, Albertans, to have a forum with which we can discuss what bothers us, but what also excites us, right? In the way that we wouldn't do normally through the other channels, the avenues like this. This is free talk, free speech. We're just talking. We're getting the court of public opinion going on. I think that that's the best way to get everybody's idea on the table and get some sort of collective voice and momentum ball rolling. If we could talk, Phil, just real quick about Jenna's comment here. I see Jenna's comment. She's saying, this ain't going to change if we're always swearing our oath to the crown. Like, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't know why we're still tied to the crown at all anymore, to be honest. Like, I don't get that tie. I don't get how it's relevant today. That might be something, once we get people like, more freedom-minded people or conservative truly conservative-minded people in office, maybe we can start pushing that ball and get it rolling, because she's right. Our oath needs to be to the people, not to the crown. I agree with that.
Yeah, fundamentally, I would agree with that too. And I think, as our country matures, and let's keep in mind, compared to the United States, we're still you know, as a country, Canada's been around for about 400 years before it was Canada, but so was the United States. I mean, it was a great big fur trading territory up until, the settlers, the British settlers started the 13 colonies. They fought for independence. Their country, as a self-contained, United States of America, is 100 years older than our self-contained Canada, which only came about 1867.
Right.
And because my theory on that is because Canada was so cold and had so few people, there was less of an appetite for a rebellion against the crown at that time.
Possibly.
And now we're kind of in more of a civilized era, and I think the key is that we may have to redefine that relationship. But right now, what's most important is, number one, stopping the socialist/communist machine in its tracks at the point of Alberta, because if they take over Alberta in this next election, we are what my grandfather used to say, up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
And the reality is this globalist socialist machine is looking to shut down our energy sector. And we all know Rachel Notley was proudly a pipeline protester. We've got photos of her, in that regard, yet she pretends that she's pro-energy and all of this stuff.
No, she's pro-union is what she is, actually.
Let's not forget that when Notley took office, the RBC had reported our finances here in Alberta on paper as a $13 billion surplus. And within 4 years, our debt, according to the same RBC report, was at $58 billion. So that's a $71 billion hole that was dug during the 4 years of Rachel Notley's reign. And during that time, our healthcare system was gutted. Obviously, how do we know? Because along came a cold that we couldn't seem to deal with. We had to close everything down.
Lock it down. Lock it all down. Shut them up. Lock it down. No, you may not speak.
Right. So ultimately, people, especially from the East, need to understand that while, the TIPA party and some of the characters involved in that, and the alliance now with the Buffalo Party, that both of these parties are new, they're fledgling, they don't have a great deal of experience. One of the best political leaders, in my opinion, between those two parties is Mark Friesen, and yet Mark Friesen has not been elected to anything as of yet. And so, I would caution them to take a little bit more of a pragmatic approach in this. Alberta needs to stand and fight the socialists back. Yeah. That's step one. Step two is modifying the policy of the party so that we can get to the bottom of this COVID file.
Step three, dismantling the crown.
Step three, then you can start talking about the crown and whether the crown has a place in Canadian politics now or in the future.
It doesn't. Even, Nikki Ashton, NDP, I saw her in she was in the House of Commons. She brought it up. The NDP brought it up. Like, why are we still tied to the crown? She says that's a great question. Like, I think that's worth delving into and at least having starting the discussion around it until we actually get the result that we want, right? But if we're talking about NDP and Rachel Notley, I mean, let me know when I can unleash, because I got a lot to say about that tonight. I don't know if you're done with the vote splitting yet, Benita. I think that's also an important thing to talk about because everybody brings it up. Everybody brings it up.
Well, I'll bring up just one thing, and then I want to hear you rant, Selena. I can't wait to get you going. Phil, will you share my screen again?
Yeah, it's absolutely there. There you go.
So I just want to talk about one particular constituency for a moment. So this is again from 338canada.com, and this is the polls for Calgary Elbow. So as you can see, just even at a glance, the NDP and the UCP are neck and neck. And that blue party there below, that's the Alberta Party. Now, they lost actually a lot of momentum last November when their leader was up against Daniel Smith in in Brooks Medicine Hat, and their leader lost. He could not win his seat in his own riding. So they lost some momentum, and they're likely going to continue to lose momentum. The problem with the Alberta Party is they lean to the left. So that's the problem with them. Okay. And so sometimes the problem is some conservatives get deceived and they start to think they should support the Alberta Party, but they lean to the left, and that's very concerning to me. So what I'm trying to say is, in the Calgary Elbow area, we've got the NDP and the UCP neck and neck, and I am hearing whispers and rumors that there's other conservative-minded individuals planning to run there. And if those conservative-minded individuals get votes, well, then what's going to happen to the UCP, the Conservative Blue Line? It's going to get further reduced, and it's going to increase the likelihood of an NDP win in that particular constituency. The problem is this could happen in other places in Alberta. So I just can't emphasize it enough to these folks that, for whatever reason, don't want to support the UCP. Whether you like the party or not is irrelevant, and whether you like your candidate or not is irrelevant. What's relevant is that if you don't support that big blue line, the orange line wins, and it's necessary and strategic to support this blue line right now. And then what's great is, after the election, people like me and other people in the Take Back Alberta team are going to continue to do our good work with the United Conservative Party and change it for the better from within, because we're only half finished, but we're not yet done. So we will continue our good work inside the party after the election.
Perfect.
Now
Yeah,
I want Christina's rant.
I would agree with that. I think the folks we have in chat are not entirely pleased with this, but the reality is we have to be pragmatic here, and there's a lot of people that want to tear things down. And I've been doing a lot of video work in the past couple weeks. I've spent a bit of time talking with Ken Drysdale. In fact, I spoke to him for about an hour yesterday morning, getting updates on the National Citizens Inquiry. And just while I'm on that topic, that's happening this Thursday in Toronto. That's the second installment out of a 9-city tour. That's happening in Toronto Thursday through Saturday, I believe. And so I've been talking to guys like him. There was a Randy Hillier interview that I aired yesterday that happened the day before by NL Media. That's Newfoundland Media. And a resounding theme amongst these two gentlemen, I found, was that they're calling for people to get involved in the political process. Randy Hillier is not split mincing words. He says it's, the political power goes, to the highest bidder kind of deal, that there's all of this corporate influence. But the only way to change that. Sorry?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that, right?
Yeah. He's basically, the only way to change that, you can either get angry and start revolting, or you can do basically the civilized thing. And the civilized thing is to get involved in a party and start steering the Titanic away from the iceberg.
Right.
And in order to do that, it takes a number of individuals that are committed, on the same page in terms of what the policy directions they want to see it, that party go. I think many of us that voted for the UCP have long thought that the UCP should probably call a referendum on sovereignty. Ask the people the question: do they want sovereignty or not? I mean, if people don't want it, they don't want it. And if they do want it, they do. But you have to ask the people the question. And I noticed that Kenny never fulfilled that promise. Go ahead.
I just want to speak to that. Phil, in my opinion, it's not the right timing. I'm not opposed to the question being asked, but I'm suggesting that if that question was asked too soon, we won't have the answer we want. The people need to be educated first. The people have been led by the government and the media. So it's the wrong timing to ask that question.
At the end of the day, and I suppose when you're faced with a Independence Party of Alberta led by a foreign national. You go, is this the right time to be trying to split off the country? You know, if you're not going to even run in every electoral district in the province, you know, like if you're only going to run for 3 seats, should you really be pushing the sovereignty issue? I personally would like my Canada back. I've long said that there's a coup d'etat at work here. You know, I've accused basically the Prime Minister of being in bed with the Chinese Communist Party and Jagmeet Singh propping them up. And I did so with Integrated National Security Enforcement Team at my door. Basically, I've stood my ground since then. And, you know, basically the instruction I got from those fine fellows in blue that came to my door is, you know, find a better way. You know, don't be calling for, you know, extreme things. Find a better way. And so, you know, I take that seriously, that we do have to find a better way. And I do think that there is a path to knocking these guys back. On the sovereignty thing, I was just saying, you know, the UCP said they were going to have a referendum. I mean, I believe they were elected on the notion that they were going to call a referendum. They never did. And along came COVID. And I can tell you, you know,
yeah, that's true.
That has echoes and mirrors in Brexit. Brexit was voted by the people to separate from the European Union. And what happened to Brexit? COVID came along. And we haven't heard much about Brexit since then.
No,
so, you know, it's kind of a little bit of the same thing. And now what we've got is a lot of these politicians trying to change the channel. So the only way we can stop them from changing the channel is to get involved in that party, right? Get involved in that party and start changing policy through the relationships with the other members that you bring to the party, right?
I support that.
I am really liking Jenna's comments here. I can't stop reading them. She makes a lot of sense. She's absolutely right. You know, she's saying you can't really swear an oath to the crown and stand up for sovereignty. It's kind of an oxymoron. I get it, you know, but I think for now, it is what it is. And until that we get in there and we start pushing for that, we have to do it from the inside out as well as the outside in, from all sides, if you will. And I think that it's going to be a giant ball, a momentum ball. Once that ball gets rolling, there won't be any stopping it, because we'll be able to get behind it because it's being done properly from the start, right? We can't get angry. We can't rah side, like we can, but it's not as effective as actually, like what Benita is saying, is getting involved, understanding the rules of the game. Once you understand the rules of the game, you can play the game. So, you know, that's my goal anyways, is to be like, how effective can I be in getting this back to the people? Where am I most effective in my little small bubble of a world here in this earth, in this corporation we call Canada and Alberta? Like, you know, that's how I look at it. What can I bring to the table to get to this desired outcome? And I think that that's a good outcome, because literally, if we're working for the people, all the people win.
You know, I just want to address Jenna's comments. So, like, Jenna, you first of all, I need to put you in your place, young lady. You're looking at a panel of people that have all faced arrest for non-compliance.
There we go.
So, you know, you have to understand that we've all stared down the system. I mean, Selena was assaulted by 5 security guards in West Edmonton Mall. Benita was chased out by security guards and then accosted by police in her vehicle as she left West Edmonton Mall in non-compliance. You know, I've had multiple visits from the RCMP here at my home and spent 3 days in jail, and I've not been charged. No charges have actually been found against me. Right? They've all been dropped. So you have to understand, like, we have been non-compliant in a big way.
Not the issue at all.
No, it's not the issue. Not at this point. I do take her comments though on the. It's almost a schizophrenic position on separation. I am a Canadian first and foremost, right? Yeah. I want my Canada back, but you know, for anybody out in Ontario, they don't really understand that Alberta's been under attack long before COVID. right, by this globalist machine. We've been under attack from the federal government for at least 7 years now. And they're trying to kill all of our jobs in our industry out here. And that's just one angle on the overall globalist plan. The globalist plan also goes into banking and finance, right? This central bank digital currency. But it also affects this global health treaty, the World Health Organization wanting to basically say they can take away our rights at any time because they say so, right? It's a multi-layered problem. But the bottom line is that Alberta has to stand against this globalist monster in order to even save Canada, right? We have to stop them at the Alberta door. If we have another 4 years and we can, fully change the board of directors on the UCP and enact the policies that we want to see enacted largely across the freedom movement, it's good for everybody but Arthur Pawlowski, Bob Blaone, and Catherine Kowalchuk, right? Bob Blaone came full out and said, our goal is 3 seats. And I can't stress this enough. They're playing to lose, right? They're hoping to get 3 seats as a fledgling party. My bet is they'll be just like the PPC and they'll get nothing. But what they will do is they will erode that conservative support by dividing it. And we've been through this in this province, going all the way back to, when the Wild Rose merged with the PCs, and everybody was pissed off about it. Then we formed the Wild Rose. Then the Wild Rose got to, and it's just like, no, okay, we're done doing this. Like, we've done this so many times now. We need to get behind the one party that's going to hold these globalists off and change their policies.
I agree with that.
I would sooner vote UCP and then go over to Danielle Smith's house and stand outside her house with a megaphone until I get her to listen to my complaints about the COVID-19 file, right?
That did not work for you the first time, Phil. It's not going to work for you again. I can tell you
Phil,
that
I'd like
much
to
right now.
interject that basically when you have a concern, there's more than one way to make your concern heard, and it doesn't always require a megaphone, okay? I have ways of helping you get your concern.
No megaphones for Phil. Phil, the pen.
Yeah. No
there's
megaphones
a-
for you.
The pen is also
Hey, listen,
mighty.
there's a saying, when all you have is a hammer, all problems look like nails. So, I got a megaphone.
You know what, though? The megaphones were required at the beginning because there were a lot of nails. Yeah. So right now, as it stands, I would agree with Phil. I think that the Conservative Party is going to be our best bet, that we strengthen them to the point of no penetration, impenetrable. They have to be impenetrable. The time for talking in the House of Commons is over. Like, it's done. We've blabbity blabbed this whole time. Nobody's given us answers. It's just a matter of driving through the bills that will put this kind of stuff in place and rallying behind one strong party to get rid of the crown and the referendum and push all this stuff through that's just been sitting there idling because the leftists had a different agenda up their sleeve this whole time, and they're not playing fair.
Benita, what are your thoughts?
We come back harder than ever.
It's all about the election. Right now is not the time to shove anything through. Right now is the time to get the UCP reelected with a majority government. After the UCP is elected, that can be a time when we put some of this stuff through. But right now is not the time to shove.
No, I didn't say now, Benita. I'm sorry if that came across that way. No, I'm saying put the Conservatives in a position where we can start just pushing bills through, right? Because otherwise it gets stuck in the House. And then here comes Jagmeet and Trudeau, and their little coalition or whatever they're calling it, which is BS also. Like, if the NDP are just going along with the Liberals, is there even an NDP party anymore?
You're talking federally now.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm talking federally, but I know that federally, a lot of the policies that happen federally are driven provincially as well, depending on which party runs the province, right? So I look at it from that perspective, is whatever's kind of coming out federally, provincially, you would sort of align yourself with the party, right? So that's just how I look at it. Maybe that's not the right way.
It's interesting you say that, because I actually just produced a video 2 days ago. I caught wind of, and it's been going around, that the feds via Statistics Canada has been sending out mobile health labs to collect health data. And an interesting aspect of that is that Rachel Notley thought that that was actually a good idea. In 2021, she was suggesting that they really need to understand what makes the 28% of the population that didn't get the quaxine, what makes them tick, and that we should go door to door and convince them. And lo and behold, the feds have now creeped into provincial jurisdiction. And since it's a provincial election coming up, this is a big issue that we should get on, all of the politicians' radar. We should find out where they stand on this, because Statistics Canada is not only breaking into what is a health jurisdiction. If they're sending out a mobile health lab, they're no longer statisticians, right? They're going out into the field. They want to collect the data that's supposed to be collected by somebody like Alberta Health Services. So now they're sending these labs out, invading provincial jurisdiction. And what you said, Selena, was how provincial policy and federal policy sometimes dovetail. And I thought, well, that's this move by the feds vis-a-vis the Trudeau government sounds exactly what Notley was proposing in 2021. And here they are sending these labs out. And I don't know if you've seen this video, but if you haven't, go to Prime Gold Media, scroll down within the last couple days. There's a video, and I did a chop up. It includes a local person, just an independent media person, and some Rebel News data, and it actually shows layouts of these labs. And I mean, they are elaborate. They are elaborate health labs, and they're a little bit scary, and they're going around. Apparently, they're in Saskatchewan, a town in Saskatchewan, and they've been going out to farms and trying to convince people to go take these tests, right?
Phil, can you pull up that picture I sent you? Do you mind pulling that up? Somebody had gone and put all of the comments that Rachel Notley had made about going to door with the vaccine shots and that, and they put them all together, and you can just see her narcissism and her neuroticism on full display here about wanting to take complete control over what people put in their bodies, what they decide what to do with their bodies. Rachel Notley clearly here has a different agenda for you guys. And I am 100% convinced that if she is voted in, she's going to bring blood clots to everybody for Christmas if she has her way. And we just can't have that. Like, if we're going to talk about health and the healthcare system, which is currently under reform thanks to Danielle Smith and her abilities there, Rachel's just going to come in, and her track record tells us that she's a destroyer of things. She doesn't make things better. She makes things worse. And so if you have managed to get through the last 2 to 3 years of the oppression, the constant coercion, the unconstitutional means with which our people in authority try to inject us with a foreign and unknown substance. Here we have Miss Notley, who completely supports that. And not only does she support that and wants to continue it, she wants to make it super hard for you to say no by coming to your freaking door and injecting you in your freaking house. Like, no, Rachel, get the hell out of here. Don't ever come back to Alberta again, is what I want to say to her, and I will get my opportunity, but I'll say it much nicer than that. On here, I feel like I can unleash a little bit more, but I don't want any blood clots, Rachel. You can take that vaccine and shove it up your ass.
I'm just going to read what's on screen, because I don't think it's that legible on the broadcast, but It's basically Rachel Notley saying vaccine passports work. Vaccine passports keep Albertans safe. They allow us to ward off threats of a broader lockdown. All establishments need to follow the rules. It's only failure to the vast majority that do. So this is all from when? From 2021?
Yeah. And it's just, a series of like over and over and over again. And, she has this really annoying ability to bombard social media with this BS messaging, right? Like that's her MO. She's not really effective in her role as a leader. She's already proven that from her time when she was, and her tactics right now for winning include bullying, and repetitive messaging. That's it. That's how she plans to get in. And of course, some like nasty, like corporate funding going on in the background, which I'm sure we can find out who's funding her as well, right? And so, she has already started her bullying campaign against Danielle Smith and the UCP, and which made me think a little bit like, gee, I wonder where these kids learn about bullying. Well, you can just look at any political campaign out there. They freaking bully each other throughout the entire duration of their campaign. That's all they do is bully. And that's all Rachel Notley is a bully. Okay, go ahead, Benita. Sorry.
just so you know, Selena. So I'm paying attention to the conservatives that are campaigning, and I'm helping organize some freedom-minded people to, kind of pointing them in the right direction so they can go campaign. And one of the things we're going to be doing is an online Zoom meeting on Sunday, April 16th, plus April 23rd, April 30th, and we'll be giving out talking points for people and coaching people about how to persuade other people to vote conservative. And yes, at times we'll be using some criticism of Rachel Notley. We'll use some of that, but not in a bullying manner. It's more of an invitational manner to say, hey, Rachel Notley fell short in these areas. For example, Phil had mentioned the debt that this province went into. Well, we also had a massive exodus. Albertans were moving to BC in droves when Rachel Notley ran this province. That was another great loss for us. And so we'll have some talking points where we criticize Rachel Notley and the NDP, but then we also sell the conservative approach and why the conservative approach is more effective. Even in the last matter of months with Danielle Smith as leader, we've shortened hospital waiting times. And so what I'm trying to say is, we want to work to persuade more people to vote conservative. And it may be that in some cases, the talking points you brought up will be effective. But if people are looking for a different type of talking point, then I invite them to come to the online Zoom April 16th.
Okay. I think that we need to absolutely move forward in love and not hate. And the bullying tactics, speak very loudly to the kind of leadership that you can expect from the NDP in this case. Like, it's just, I see what she's doing. It's all smoke and mirrors because she doesn't have anything else. She doesn't have the track record that she can speak to either. It's all going to be like bash Danielle, bash Danielle, bash Danielle. And they're coming in on social media. They're in on the games. They're everywhere. The commercials are everywhere. Like Danielle Smith is whatever they're saying out there, which is not even true. Like it's not even true. And so the conservative approach is going to be to highlight Rachel's shortcomings because there's lots, and that is just truth. That is fact. That is not a made up story. And it's certainly not bullying. It's just fact. And people need to know who they're voting for. Rachel's not going to tell them who she really is. She's not going to do that. Nope.
Yeah.
Now that I see how many people are excited to go door knocking and help with the conservative campaign, I have high hopes that the outcome of the election on May 29th is the NDP is going to have far less seats in government. I'm very optimistic. Yeah. And there's strategic campaign planning going on in all these different areas, especially Calgary, but also Lethbridge and some in and near Edmonton. And so I'm very, very hopeful those NDP reps are going to lose their seats.
Well, we're more hopeful that the Conservatives will win their seats. Whatever happens to the NDP will be of their own demise. I like to sort of move forward with love like you do, Benita. I fully support that approach to, even with politics, we shouldn't be demonstrating bullying tactics at the political level, because our kids see that. They see that and they bully each other on the playground. I mean, if we want to be good mentors for our future generations, we should start at the political level. It doesn't need to get like all angry and hostile like that. But that's just the NDP Liberal way for some reason, and I want to call that out, and Maya, she said that the MSM is on Notley's side as well, which is why, again, independent media, super important, because we can be the voice for the other side, because we know that MSM is going to get paid to say what they need to say. We know this.
Yeah. Hey, listen, on this topic of bullying and stuff, I'm looking at this Jenna Brunsky in the comments, and she's raging because we're saying, hey, we need to get behind the Conservative Party here in Alberta so we don't put the NDP in, and she's raging about it. She's saying don't vote, and I'm sorry, we aren't anarchists here in Alberta, and Jenna's from Ontario. I don't propose to understand where she's coming from, but my attitude on Ontario and this whole federation is that they've got their heads up their asses, and I mean bad. They haven't been able to sort out good from bad for a long time, and they've sucked us down this hole where that we can't seem to get out of. And then they start rushing out to the west, saying we got to go to Alberta because we screwed it all up. And I think of that song.
That's fine. I
think of that song, Don't California My Texas, right?
I thought you were going to say I'm Alberta bound.
Well,
I'm Alberta bound. Rocky Mountains, black fertile ground. You know what? Alberta welcomes you. That's what I say. We would never turn anybody away, not especially now, because we need all the conservative-minded people that we can get. I think that that's the way to go to change things around quickly. But, Tracy also mentioned we have to think long game, and I agree with that as well. What we're doing now should also contribute to the long game. And that's where people like David Parker come in. That's where people like Danielle Smith and her team come in. They're thinking long-term, long game. What kind of strategy can we implement right now, not only to get reelected, but to stay elected and enact this positive change. So, I have to say that that is looking like the most sure way to win now and into the future, because it just makes the most sense. So with Benita, she's saying, like, get involved, be that person, go door knocking. I don't know if we need to necessarily like convince or persuade people. I think that will just come naturally based on how we're talking, what we're saying, right? And having those honest conversations. I'm not here to sway one person one way or the other. All I do is present the information and let them come up with the decision. If they decide they want to go with NDP, well, I'll pray for you. I will pray for you, because that is just a dumpster fire waiting to happen, in my opinion. And JJ is asking where you can follow me. You can follow me on Selena Paley and Selena Gabrielle on Instagram. Sorry, Phil. Selena Paley on Facebook. JJ, just send me a friend request. Sorry, guys. Continue.
A couple comments on what you said there. The first one regarding people fleeing Ontario to Alberta. I just want to point out that on the federal level, okay, if a bunch of Easterners start running away from their ridings, they're actually diluting their vote by running to Alberta. And let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because if there was a mass exodus of Ontarians to Alberta, Alberta's per capita seat allotment right now is actually lower than it is in a place like Ontario or Nova Scotia or Newfoundland. Okay, they have less people per seat in a place like Newfoundland, like 80,000 people per seat, whereas in Alberta, we have something like 110 or 120,000 people per seat. If there was a mass,
NWT only has 3. That's another issue. That is just another issue that we need to look at, is redistributing the seat count so that it doesn't favor Ontario.
I'm out though, Selena.
Okay.
Because I haven't finished explaining. So the point is that the East has more heavily weighted person to seat ratio. Okay. So less people per seat means your vote actually has more influence on the country on a 1-for-1 basis. So now the West has not properly allotted seats based on population. And that's been long a historical by design, that to keep the West in check, the East had more seats. Okay. So now if the Easterners run to Alberta thinking they're running towards freedom, what they're actually doing is diluting their votes. And what happens with the population back there? Well, what, and I've spoken with a lot of people about this. What the government has done this last year, I don't know if you heard the stat, but we just had the largest migratory year ever in 2022. I think the population grew by 1 million people. Roxham Road is only just being shut down by the Liberals after they moved 1 million new people into the country, most likely not legally. And those people are now going to form voting blocks in the East. So you've got people that are frustrated with the system, probably people that don't vote to begin with, running from the East to the West, thinking they're going to run from their problems. And we're here to tell them, no, if you're coming to Alberta, you better get involved in the political process, because we're surrounded right now in people that want to take away our freedom.
Oh, how the tables have turned, and that's just cyclical economic, political stuff. That's bound to happen, especially when we take our hands off the wheel for a little bit, which we did. And here we're back now. And so now that we're back, how do we move forward? Right. And that's the key, is if we can all just somehow be in lockstep here, that is our best bet for having a majority or sweeping vote in the right direction. Like Phil says, first we take Alberta, then we take Berlin. You know what I'm saying? That's how we do it. I believe in Alberta. I believe in Albertans specifically, and Canadians at large, that we can get through this together. Look what we did in Ottawa. We turned some stuff around there. Now it's just a matter of, again, let's get into that lockstep and let's just move forward, you guys. Let's do it. Who's ready?
That word lockstep that's one of the key words of the people that have been doing this whole thing, lockstep.
Well, it's effective.
So you're saying turn it on them. Form our own lockstep.
Bill works every time.
Fair enough.
But don't air this live, because then they're going to know what we're up to. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Everybody, shh. Quiet.
Yeah, no, they're definitely listening. We all know that. And, actually, I kind of take pride in the fact that we're coming out in the public after having faced down all of the tyranny that we have in this last 2 years.
Oh.
I'm proud of us for standing up against this absolute bullshit. And we're still standing tall, and we're still exclaiming that we're not giving in, and we're letting them know what we're planning in the open. We did it with the convoy, right? Pat King planned that whole thing out in the open. We were all part of that. We all, pumped it. And, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of us doing it in the open. And, I think what's frustrating, especially to guys like Sparkle Socks, is that we won't give up, we won't give in, and we're not going to do what he wants. And what he wants us to do is act like a bunch of heathens and start burning stuff. And we're not going to do that, right?
Perseverance and tenacity is my middle name. Well, that would be 2 middle names, but that's what everybody needs right now: persistence and tenacity. And I get
strategy
it. We're up against
and coordination. We need strategy and coordination.
Yeah, and that too.
Like, I'm hearing a lot of hey, push forward, etc. But what's actually needed is strategic, coordinated action. And so part of that is you vote for the Conservative in your area. That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect is you commit to persuading 10 other people to vote conservative, 10 of your friends between now and May 29th. And if they're already conservatives, it doesn't count. You have to find people who are apathetic, or you have to find people leaning NDP, or you have to find young people who've never bothered to vote.
Right.
And so if you can persuade 10 people, no matter what constituency they're in, maybe you've got relatives in South Edmonton, persuade them to vote conservative. Strategic coordinated action is what's needed right now. Phil, can you share my screen, please? So, because I just want to show you what a tenuous situation we're in here. Back in 2015, the Alberta Party leader, Greg Clark, won Calgary-Albo. So that's a constituency in Calgary that we are fighting for. So Alberta Party leans to the left, okay? So there it is. There was a leftist elected back in 2015. So then we look at it, and we look at the 2019 election results. And yes, we got a United Conservative guy in there with 10,000 votes. Doug Schweitzer took it, and then he resigned last September. So, but he only won by about 3,000 votes. That's all he won. And look who the second place person was. That was Greg Clark, Alberta Party. He's left of center. Third place was New Democratic. If the freedom vote is split and we don't all vote for the United Conservative rep in that area, then there are two chances for someone who leans to the left to get in. The Conservative vote has to be united. It has to be united under the Conservative Party with the most money, members, and momentum, and that's the United Conservative Party. And so the numbers are very clear in this writing. Yeah. When I bump into people that say I'm not interested in politics, it really bothers me, because politics is the policies that govern your life. And for 2 years, we've been protesting. The Freedom Convoy went to Ottawa. We protested. Biggest, most famous protest in the world. And it inspired people across the world to protest. Well, what did you protest for if it wasn't to get in there and contribute to changing policies? So these votes matter. And anybody who says to me, oh, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to bother, well, you are actually falling right into the trap of the globalists. The globalists want you to voluntarily give up your democratic right to vote. They want you to think that, oh, it's pointless to vote. Oh, I don't believe in the system. I've got news for you. The system is not perfect, but it is not broken. And we can still make a difference here. And so although, like, I appreciate the fluff and the people saying, hey, you know, take action, do this, what I'm trying to say is you have to take it a step further. You need to get involved in an organization like Take Back Alberta and get strategic and organized, because voting is not enough and strategic action is required.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, like, giving up your right to vote, that's called losing by attrition, right? If the politics, if you don't vote, I mean, it's like shooting, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. That's a saying, right? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. But what we're not just talking about mobilizing people to vote. We're talking about getting people involved in the party so they vote at the party level, because that's where the power is. It's big, you know, the power is in the party members that vote for policy. And if you are
full circle, Phil. So here it is. If you want to vote at the party level, then you have to make sure you purchase that United Conservative Party membership. So this fall will be the United Conservative Party AGM. My understanding is it's in Calgary in October. Get your membership now. Your membership is good for at least a year. Get it and make sure you've got it. And Selena, you mentioned potentially wanting to run for a spot on the board. Maybe there's other people who want to run for the provincial board. But what I'm trying to say is these memberships have deadlines. You cannot buy your membership the week before and go to the AGM. You cannot buy your membership even a month before and go to the AGM and get a spot on the board. You have to buy it now. I don't know what all the deadlines are, but there's people who seem to like resent that. Well, why should I have to buy a membership in order to vote? Because that's how the system works. The system is not perfect, but this is how the party system works. And if you care about democracy, you'll spend $10 and get engaged.
Yeah, I mean, like, how badly do you need that woke Starbucks? Like, really, like, this is about our future. You know, this is about our kids' future is more how I'm looking at it. And obviously with a laser sharp focus on the education system, because that is broken. That is very broken. I didn't like what I saw there at all over these last couple of years. I think a deep dive is going to be required. And again, putting the right people on the school boards and the right teachers in the classroom.
And Take Back Alberta has caused initiatives like that to take place. So, for example, people have been inspired to join their library boards and run for municipal office, because the Take Back Alberta concept is universal. It's not just about the United Conservative Party. It's about, if you don't like something, join them and change it from within. And you can do this with anything. We could be doing this with union boards. We could be doing this with church boards. And we could even be doing this with corporations. Now, it requires strategic, coordinated action, though. It may require people to get in and then gradually work their way up. And they may have to play along with the current system until they're in a position of leadership. And then they got to bring in a whole bunch of their friends that think the same as them. And then you make the change from inside. But this can be done. We just accomplished this with the United Conservative Party. We're not finished. We'll continue. We'll finish this fall. And this concept can be applied to any entity that you want to change from within.
I mean, start in your own house with your family. Implement certain expectations and rules that show how you want to be treated and how you treat each other with respect. You know, that's how you build honesty and loyalty and trust. And those same principles should be applied to every system that we have in our country. I mean, why don't they? You know, as far as I was concerned, they did. And when we saw our rights being abused, we had to question that. And then look what we found out, you guys. Look what we found out questioning things. We found out a lot. We've come a long way. What's the WEF? I remember saying that. What's the WEF? Like, whoa.
What people need to learn to affect change is that it's going to require work. Okay. Yeah. So complaining is not enough. It means, okay, signing up to be a part of something. It means actually attending the meetings. It means writing an agenda. It means taking minutes. It means knowing parliamentary procedure and abiding by certain rules. Because if we all talk on top of each other, we're not going to accomplish anything. And so there's a lot of people that aren't ready to step into that realm because it's uncomfortable for them. Maybe they've never been on a board in their entire life, and this is weird. Well, in part due to the encouragement from Take Back Alberta, there are now people sitting on boards and they've never been on a board in their entire life, but they are stepping in. I took a course actually this morning on getting the most out of your board of directors. And so what I'm trying to say is, if you want to see change, you can't just complain. You can't just wait on people like us sitting in this meeting to make the change. And you can't just vote. It's not enough. You actually have to be the change, and you have to step out of that comfort zone and start going to those meetings.
Yeah. And you know, I think that's a big portion of it. But, you know, like Jenna's still going on in the chat
Phil,
here.
Don't engage, Phil. Just
no, it's fine. Listen, I've spoken to Jenna before. I mean, you know, she's a young mother. She's got some young children. She should be dialed into this. I mean, it's people in her age category that need to get involved. They need to start, you know, one of these episodes that I aired recently with Ken Drysdale, they were talking about, you know, getting involved in a library board, getting involved in, you know, your local education system in terms of standing up as a trustee for the education system. If you're unhappy with masking in schools, if you're unhappy with library policy, people have to get involved. And here's the problem. There's not enough people getting involved. The political party thing is one problem. Okay, we know that there's problems with parties. We know that corporate influence is getting involved and unduly influencing these processes. We're against the WEF, obviously. You know, we're being trolled here by a supporter. It's quite annoying. But the bottom line is we're against these things, and we have stood up in our province. I mean, all three of us were down at the teepees. We did the yell and scream routine with our, you know, we made music, we banged drums, we used megaphones right under Jason Kenney's condo building, you
So
know,
good.
but that still wasn't enough to get rid of them. It
No,
wasn't enough to
that's right.
stand out there and protest for 3 solid weeks until they could find a way to throw us off the property.
Right.
It came down to, you know, taking back Alberta, getting involved, and now with 9 new directors because of a flood of new memberships last year. 9 new directors, freedom-minded directors, were brought into the board. So that's a great big start. And, you know, I would like, before we, you know, come to an end,
Yep.
you know, let's talk a little bit about the tip of party, because I have some issues with this idea, and I'm going to be as nice as I can, since there's 2 ladies in the room. You know, Bob Leon was, well, he takes himself to be a political strategist. And what I'm seeing is, you know, right here, Benita's got more strategy in her little finger. Let's start there. And that's me being nice. Bob Leon gave up on the UCP party, and he takes credit. I've literally heard him in a speech take credit for putting Kenny in office in the UCP. So what does he do? He ejects rather than hangs around for taking back Alberta to re-steer the party. You know, why? It doesn't make any sense. If he was a UCP guy and he believed in the party at one time, why wouldn't he hang around with David Parker to steer the ship, which is what David Parker, you know, David Parker's not saying, hey, you know, I'm the guy to lead you. David Parker's saying, I want to help you guys take back your party, because what I've seen is, you know, is unacceptable.
It is.
You know, and he tells quite a story, and I know David Parker is one of us because I listened to his story, and his story goes back to the Reform Party. I mean, I was, you know, a young man at that time, but I was definitely a reformer, right? Under Preston Manning, you know, and he talked about all of the challenges with the merger, with, you know, Harper and McKay and the Canadian Alliance, which eventually became the Conservative Party of Canada. So, you know, he's well engaged in this, and, you know, his story was compelling for me anyways, just in the regards that he had said, you know, I'm disappointed. I was a conservative. I was a conservative member right up until 2019. And then I refused to renew my membership, right? I refused because I was unhappy, right? I used to write my Conservative member of Parliament when I lived in Barrie, Ontario, who was Patrick Brown, by the way, now one of the, yeah.
Well, we can talk about him for a while too, but I digress. Okay,
Well, you know, the joke is, sorry, what's the city that he's mayor of now? It's a suburb of Toronto.
Yes, not Scarborough, Brampton, Hamilton, maybe.
Brampton. It's Brampton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the mayor of Brampton.
Yeah.
The joke goes, Brampton always wanted a brown mayor, but they got Patrick instead. So Patrick Brown, he was an MP backbencher, a Barrie resident, and then he dropped into a mayoral position in Brampton, of all places. And then when the lockdowns happened, he was skating in the ice rink, maskless, while everybody else was not allowed to go in without a mask, right? But anyways, I digress. He was my MP, and I had been writing him long ago on many of these topics, including the Bank of Canada and the Rocco Galati case. And you know what I got from my MP, my Conservative MP, who's, you know, he's within my age category, like by 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So we're almost peers. I met him at a party, for God's sakes. He was friends with my ex-wife's cousin. And I challenged him on these things. And it occurred to me that he was just an empty shirt. You know, and it's this political system, this way that the system is structured right now with the parties and how the backbenchers have no voice, right? It's that fundamentally in political parties across the country that we need to change, where there is no party whip. And there's a lot of talk of that now. I see Benita's teeing up a screen. Benita, I'm about to pass it to you, but there's a lot of people, including Randy Hillier and others, that are talking about the potential of ditching parties altogether, having a party without the party, organizing ourselves in voting blocks, and then, you know, we can influence the politics overall.
I mean, as long as the citizens benefit, that is key. So long as they're protected and they benefit, it's for the benefit of the people, always for the beneficial owners of the Corporation of Canada are the citizens within it, the ones who pay their taxes, the ones that contribute to the bottom line. That's who the beneficial owners are. And those beneficial owners are getting screwed right now. And we need to change it and turn it around. And how do we do that? Well, we have conversations like this. We involve political strategists like Take Back Alberta. This is how we do it, you guys. You can be on board with it or not. You can vote or not. But not voting, as we talked about this evening, is probably the least wise thing to do right now. It's the least wise. So if you're still uncertain, you need more information, reach out to your MPs, reach out to your MLAs, reach out to the parties themselves, go to their websites. There's lots of information out there, and there certainly will be now that we're ramping up for this provincial election. Benita's got some information here. I'm going to head out, you guys. I'm going to duck out. I got to go. But this was an excellent live, you guys. I really thank you for letting me come on tonight. I really enjoyed myself. I'm going to follow up with each of you after. But for now, I just want to say, I'm looking forward to the outcome of this provincial election and making my presence known in the political arena to get this ball rolling in the right direction. So thank you very much, both of you, for staying on top of the issues that affect Albertans. Thank you.
Good to see you, Selena.
Thanks for coming, Selena.
Love you all. Okay, guys, take care. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Okay. So what I've got here, Phil, is a chart, and these are the election results from last March. So there was a by-election for the constituency of Fort McMurray-Lac-La-Biche, and as you can see, Brian Jean of the United Conservative Party won that. Now, when we look at this chart and you look down and zoom in on the bottom, you can see that these alternative conservative parties made an attempt. They ran some candidates there, and you were talking about the Independence Party of Alberta. And as you can see, they only got 24 votes in that by-election, which is 0.4% of the vote. So the momentum for the Independence Party is little to nothing, at least as of March last year. Now we're going to flip it over here and we're going to look at a different election results. So these are from last November when Danielle Smith won her seat in Brooks Medicine Hat. And so she achieved over 55% of the vote there. An NDP person came in second. The Alberta Party was represented. Barry Morishita is the leader of the Alberta Party. Again, they lean left of center, and he's the leader, and he couldn't even win in his own riding, at least not against Danielle Smith. And then there's your Independence Party of Alberta with 200 votes, or just a mere 1.9% vote. So what bothers me about this is that there are people with the Independence Party that are misleading Albertans and making them think that the Independence Party has a chance of winning a seat, and they don't. My prediction is they will win 0. That's what they're going to win on May 29th. And it's really bothering me that they are misleading Albertans to think they do have a chance, when it's just so easy for me to look at the numbers and go, okay, let's see the momentum. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so once you look at the vote from last year, that affects the momentum of this year. And sure, some of them are doing some campaign work and somewhat gaining momentum. But like the reality is they're not going to win seats, and they're misleading Albertans. They're taking the money. Now, 4 years from now, it might be a different story, or 8 years from now. But it all depends on the choices this party makes stepping forward right now. For them to run even one candidate in a riding where the margin is tight between the UCP and the NDP, for them to consider running a candidate in any of these ridings where the margin is that tight is absurd. And that, to me, is an offense to Albertans. If you run a candidate in a riding that looks like this, you are splitting the right wing vote, and you're basically ushering in an NDP rep. And my understanding is they are running at least one candidate in a riding like this. So I am incredibly disappointed in that party, it wouldn't take much for them to just adjust strategy slightly and then gain more Albertans as supporters so they can be successful in 4 years or 8 years. I am not opposed to all of their principles, and I even like some of the people involved. But the attitude that they have now, they're not going to grow, and they're not going to succeed. So I'm very frustrated that the Conservatives are, in some cases, fighting with the Conservatives. But the good news is it's a minority. It is a minority. They don't even show up on this chart. Even the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta has lost serious momentum this past year. By the way, everybody should check out this website, 338canada.com. And when you go on this website, they have so much more than bar charts. They've also got these other great charts here. So as you see by looking at this one, popular vote projection in Alberta, you can see the UCP and the NDP are neck and neck, and the alternative Conservative parties don't even register on this chart. They're not even on there. In 4 years, maybe that'll be different. Who knows, right? But here we go again. Neck and neck. It's UCP or NDP. So pick one. If you don't pick UCP, you are essentially helping the NDP, and that's just the way it is. And this is math. A lot of people don't realize that I used to be a business analyst, and numbers are my forte. I love numbers. And so I just look at this and it's so obvious to me, and I would love to help more people understand this. To get it, because apparently some people aren't getting it yet, and I would love to help more Albertans understand the importance of everybody who's freedom minded, everybody who's conservative, uniting with the United Conservative Party.
Yeah, fair enough. I look at those numbers and it's shocking how few votes they got. Here's the thing with this, especially with social media, it creates a bit of a buzz about things that maybe aren't as big of a buzz in real life, right? I was a bit concerned with the whole True North Declaration and the way that, this Buffalo Party and Tippa Party, they're trying to set themselves up as if they're the only guys that care about freedom. And I find that kind of offensive. I find it offensive that there are people out there that say, well, there's only one way. And, most of the time I find that it's a combination of methods. There's not one way to skin a cat, so to speak. There's multiple methods, and most often a number of complementary methods are what is required to solve the problem, right? So it is interesting. I think Tippa's got a lot of buzz because of Arthur Pawlowski and all of his media attention in the US. I do have apprehension about that. Like, I do wonder about that party, specifically their connections to the Trump administration. I've been airing concerns about that. I mean, Donald Trump, I don't know if you're aware of this, but he's basically come out and said he was the father of the vaccine. Are you familiar with that? That the fact that he's actually claimed responsibility for forcing it through the FDA?
Well, I can tell you with regards to the Independence Party that they did have Dr. Paul Alexander speak at an event recently, and that Dr. Paul Alexander did serve on the administration for Trump. So there's sort of an indirect connection there. Now, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Paul Alexander. I appreciate much of his messaging, but what I disagree with him on, and I think I'm going to disagree with you on this, Phil, as well. There are various people that are shouting accountability, 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 and I disagree with you. I disagree with you that you should not be shouting accountability at this time. And that includes you, and that includes Dr. Paul Alexander. Here's why. We, the freedom-minded, have no evidence to suggest that we are actually the majority. Yes, a lot of people participated in the Freedom Convoy, and the Freedom Convoy was financially supported. However, we do not actually have evidence that demonstrates that we are the majority. Therefore, we, the freedom-minded, need to grow in numbers. We need to bring into our circles those folks who are not yet freedom-minded. It is necessary. We have to grow.
Well,
I'm just let me finish.
yeah,
up.
I mean, I'm sorry, no,
Give me a second.
so time
You
out,
can't
time out.
shout accountability right now. If you shout accountability right now, you are
No.
scaring off your potential allies.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but
Shout it.
the National Citizens Inquiry is unleashing the truth, Benita, and it's happening in real time. It started last week in Truro, Nova Scotia. It's happening again this week in Toronto, and it's going to continue through 9 cities until it gets out here to Red Deer. And everybody that's testifying on that is testifying about some abhorrent things that have happened to them, whether it was an injury through the vaccine, whether it was being forced out of a job and losing their home.
And
you know,
and
so listen,
are they ignoring it?
No, so let me finish my sentence.
You're not doing outreach.
Let me finish my sentence. So in terms of the political scene, you know, we're not, you know, people have been wronged in all this. I'm not going to stop calling for accountability. I'm not going to stop covering all of the evidentiary materials out there on this matter. I'm not going to stop covering the fact that Stand for Thee and Jane Scarf have basically called the invocation of the EA illegal. You know, I'm not going to stop talking about that. Now, whether or not the UCP party or the Conservative Party is going to hold somebody accountable is part of what this whole policy process is about. Now, you know, you're trying to encourage people to get involved in policy. If you're telling them they have to shut up and they can't look for accountability, then why the hell would they get involved in trying to change policy in the first place?
You're misunderstanding me. What I'm saying is you can't be too aggressive in your approach until you have enough people on your side. And getting people on your side is due to strategic behavior. And if we're out there shouting accountability, those people who could have been on our side, you just scared them off because you shouted accountability.
Okay.
There are people, they know they screwed up and they are
You're not fooling anybody though with this. You're not fooling anybody.
Many of them.
You're not, no, but you're not fooling anybody because I've been very clear on where I stand on all of this. So, you know, my role in all of this is as a journalist, as an independent media guy. Okay. I've been wronged by everything that's gone on. I've lost 4 people in my family. I'm not going to stop talking about accountability. I think our prime minister's a traitor. I think he needs to serve a traitor's sentence, whatever that may entail. And I'm not going to back down from that. Not from you, not from CSIS, not from INSET, right? So, you know, if you're representing David Parker and a path out of this, I'm listening. I'm covering it. But I'm not going to stop talking about accountability. I'm looking for the hammer to drop on these people. People were coerced into taking a poison jab, and it killed people. My best friend died suddenly December 2021, and I'm going to testify to that in Red Deer when the National Citizens Inquiry comes through.
Be listening, Phil. Is the mainstream media going to be listening? Are they going to air your testimony? It's unlikely. What I'm trying to say is you can't have accountability until you have enough allies on your side. In order to get allies on your side, you don't shout accountability. You shout something else. To get allies on your side, you draw them in. Then, once you have enough allies on your side, now we can move forward with accountability.
I think
I'm not against accountability. I'm against this timing. It is not strategic.
You know what? Screw the timing and screw that strategy, because if lying is the strategy, then I'm not on board. You know,
not lying, it's persuasion. It's okay.
Well, I'm not a politician, right? I'm an impactee of what's going on with this COVID nonsense. I don't
come with you.
I don't honestly care if there's conservatives that are scared of a guy like me. They ought to be scared. I started off in accounting. Listen, I'm not done. I started off in accounting. Okay, I'm an accountant. As an IT guy in accounting. That's where I started. Then I got into automated forms processing and document and records management. You know why you keep records? Accountability. So you're selling the wrong person on this. I think you might want to digress on the point so we can end on a nice note. I'm not going to stop. You could persuade people with whatever you want. The NCI is going on now, and it's going on through this year, and the timing isn't designed for an election.
But who's
So,
watching the NCI, Phil? Are you changing
well,
minds and hearts of everyday Albertans? Is the
it's
mainstream
clear.
media covering
It's clear to me. It's clear to me that you aren't, but you ought to, right? You ought to listen to the NCI. You ought to listen to the testimony. I'm certainly pushing it on this channel, and we'll continue to push it on this channel.
I think that's a good thing, but I'm curious to know what you felt about the inquiry that occurred and the aftermath of the inquiry. It was obvious to you and me that Trudeau was in the wrong.
Okay, so first of all, let's get clear on what is what, okay? The Emergency Act inquiry was called by default. I've done a whole show on this. I republished War Campaigns interview. Roe interviewed Jane Scarf. You listen to her arguments in detail, okay? Jane Scarf appeared in the EA inquiry. She objected to Rouleau's inquiry, to his appointment. She objected to the whole thing and said, basically, you had no justification. We have all the evidence. And Rouleau basically responded to her, well, you're entitled to your opinion on that, and you can take it up in federal court. And so that, that's what Jane's doing. I believe that, the EA was a kangaroo court. Of course, there was no ever going to be a legal outcome out of it. All they're doing is using it to stage the narrative for the next phase of their plan, which is basically to call everybody in that believes in bodily autonomy and questioning the experimental jab is putting them into a category of a religious, political, anti-science extremist. Okay, that's the outcome of that inquiry. They basically told us the narrative of how they're going to come after our freedom movement. Now, the National Citizens Inquiry is something separate, and that's for us. It's not government led. It is all completely led by volunteers. Okay, and those volunteers are all volunteering in different capacities. There's lawyers involved. There's people in media that are involved. And the idea is to establish documentary evidence that could perhaps be utilized later. It is about winning hearts and minds and explaining to people exactly why people that were against the COVID, specifically the COVID genetic modification, why they are upset with how everything that's gone down. If it isn't obvious, people being thrown out of their jobs, losing their homes, losing their livelihoods, and in some cases dying from taking this thing, I don't know what is, but that inquiry is about laying an evidentiary framework and getting awareness. Is something going to come of it? Well, it depends on what we do with it. But at this point, it's something that needs to be amplified. That's what I'm saying. Is the mainstream media going to pick it up? Of course they are. The mainstream media is useless. They're fucking useless. Pardon my French. A lot of those people, and I don't know if you've seen the intro to my new show on Prime Gold Media. I ran the old one at the beginning of this show, but in my new show, I'm calling for most of the mainstream media executives to go to fucking prison, Benita. So this isn't a joke, right? I played a Ken Drysdale episode today. We have a police officer, Winnipeg police officer, who was terminated from his job, even though he was a 35-year veteran, right? Because he asked some questions, because things didn't make sense, right? Now, let's not get this convoluted with our Alberta election. Our Alberta election, we got to keep the socialists out. That's goal one. All of this stuff, yes, I would agree. We're not going to pursue that with the UCP until they get elected again. And when they get elected again, they better get used to a fucking nightmare at their door. And I mean a nightmare. You can get all the people you want involved in that UCP party. It ain't going to be me. I'm going to be outside the AGM with my fucking megaphone, letting those bastards know that if they don't fucking put their counterparts in that party that are responsible for this shit in fucking jail, then it's going to be them. And that's exactly what I told Casey Madu when I saw him September of 2021 and photographed him.
I think I'm going to exit soon, but I will say this.
Listen.
The way, may I have an uninterrupted statement?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The way we win is by winning people over. That's how we win.
Well, you win them over. I'm not about winning anybody over. I'm not running for office, not in a million years. I don't want to be a politician. Never, never, ever. I still vote, though. I'm still going to vote. Do I see myself becoming a member of the UCP party? Probably not. But I can support I can get behind what you're doing without wanting to get involved myself. I'm an IT guy. And I'm always going to be an IT guy. And outside of that IT guy, I'm going to be a journalist. And the reason I want to be a journalist is because I want the truth. I don't care about winning people over. I want the truth. And often the truth
public
is,
opinion matters. Because
I know it matters, and I know it matters, and I know that the right,
we have
the
to.
right. So Benita, hear me. The right people need to win people over. I'm not going to be that guy. Okay, I'm going to be the town. I'm going to be the town crier, screaming from the rooftops. Look at this person, and what happened to them? Look at this person, and what happened to them? Because that happened to me too, right?
Other strategies, Phil. There's other strategies that don't require that extreme behavior. There's other ways of getting the change.
And I'm doing it now. I'm giving you a platform, Benita. I'm giving you a platform, right?
It's been fun. Thanks for having me as a guest, Phil. And
Thank
what
you.
I'm thankful for, Phil, is on many things you and I agree. And even though there are some things we don't agree on, I just want to say I respect you, and I do appreciate being a guest on your show. Thanks for having me.
Fair enough. And despite our little banter here, I'll just let the audience know that we're frenemies. We do have these arguments sometimes, and yet we still work together. And it's important for people out there to see that even though she kind of wants to, it's this way. She wants to poke me through this invisible barrier we've got in between us here. At the end of the day, we are on the same team. We do want the same things. We want this stuff to come to an end, and it just has to take a phased approach and a plan. So I'm with you. I support you in spirit, but you're not going to shut me up ever. Okay. Thanks for joining, Benita. Have a good night. I'm just going to take us out on a song as per usual. And thanks for joining us, guys. Please share this out. If you support independent media, you support tough questions, you support non-censorship. Even in this episode, we had people in the chat that were unhappy with what we were saying. They're still, they haven't been banned from the page. We didn't delete the comments, stuff like that. This is a platform for people to get their message out, to get the truth out, and to get their viewpoints out. And it's going to continue to be that, but I need your support. I need your support, you, the viewer. Any size donation, small, a $5 donation, that can add up in the end. The mainstream media is fully funded by your government, right? And they aren't asking these questions. They aren't having these conversations. We are. So I'd ask that you please support to Edmonton Freedom Central at shaw.ca. I am looking for a full-time gig again in IT, and I am going to continue doing this, but your support helps. There's a lot of work that goes into producing some of the content that goes out here, even if it's canned content from somebody else. Putting it into a 1-hour episode and airing that throughout the day, that takes time, right? The Randy Hillier edit of NL Media, which I would highly recommend people look at, that it was originally, I think, an hour and 20-minute episode. I edited that and reproduced it into a 45-minute more digestible episode, and it took me the bulk of a full day to do that and get it out to people for consumption. So realize that this stuff doesn't do itself, and if you value what we're doing and the information that we're bringing, please donate. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me. We're going to go out as usual on a song. Here we go.
where the heart is, the center of our gravity. Home is not a privilege that is granted by Her Majesty. A home is our right, a place to raise our family. Home is where we go for tranquility and sanctity. Home is where we feel at peace and we can have some privacy, where I can voice my thoughts and nobody tries to silence me. Home is where commotion turns to settling dust. Home is where we raise our kids to be better than us. And home is more than just a house. Home is where there's unity. Home is where we gather. Home is our communities. Home is the connection that we share when we trust. Home is not about me. Home is about us. Home is the guiding light within that we feel drawn to. Home is the source of our creation we belong to. Let them try with their lies meant to pull us apart. We always find our way home cause we know it by heart.
All these long and lonely roads, they wind and bend, they find me friends, they lead me home. And I know no matter where I roam, I'm watching love from high above, I'm not alone.
Home is our cities, our states and our countries. Home is the earth below, the sky above me. Home is the truth we instinctively know, helping us to find home everywhere that we go. But there's many false prophets trying to lead us astray, who want to tell us what to do but not hear what we say. They ignore us while they play their game of righteous pretend, like we don't notice that their rules ain't applying to them. While our children have lost their future, made to cover up their faces, forced to get injections for attendance at their favorite places. Where does it end? When we take to the streets, the government won't call a hearing, they just call the police. And to the faceless stormtroopers, where is your humanity? Just following orders is no excuse for your insanity. It's time to cut the rod out at the source like a cavity. It's time to go home and realize that we're a family.
All these long and lonely roads, they wind and bend, they find me friends, they lead me home. And I know no matter where I roam, I'm watching love from high above, I'm not alone.
Do you recognize this country? Is this the way you like to live? Constantly harassed to put a mask upon your wife and kids. Cops with riot packs who like to act as if no rights exist. Alive, but we're not really living. What kind of life is this? The world is full of risks, but we don't need protection, cause all of their solutions are much worse than the infection. If we want resolution, we need unity, not politics. Why should we trust somebody who's broken so many promises? But maybe this was meant to be and had to happen all along. The cycle's always spinning and it's darkest right before the dawn. It's funny, to the point of laughing out loud, cause what they said would never happen, well it's happening now. And so many are waking up. Welcome to the front lines. The ones who know behind the clouds will always be the sunshine. You and I see through the lies, no longer alone, and let the compass in our souls guide and carry us home.
All these long and lonely roads, they wind and bend, they find me friends, they lead me home. And I know no matter where I roam, I'm watching love